Thank you, Stephen. And I want to take the opportunity to say thank you to the IOM for hosting this event. It's been incredibly interesting and thought-provoking. I feel like I have a heavy responsibility here because I feel like there's been so much good thinking in this room and so many good ideas. And really, as the last panel, I want to hope we can tie it all together and think about some next steps that are actionable. It's also heavy because I know it's been a long day, and so holding everybody's attention is its own challenge. And I think what we need to do is balance a couple of competing themes. There's the one which is to be thoughtful and create a very thorough business case and plan forward, and then there's the advice from our former chief counsel, who I think went to go work for Nike and said, just do it. And I think the truth is probably somewhere in between. So I'd like to tie that together. First, let me tell you a little bit about FDA's perspective on this and my role in the organization. So FDA reorganized in July 2011 and pulled the various components into 4 different directorates. One is our operations, one is medical products and tobacco, one is food and feeds, and then the 4th is the Office of Global Regulatory Operations and Policy, which is my office. And the innovation about this is that our commissioner decided to take our field force, which is domestic, about 4,400 people, give or take, and our international office, which is about 100 people, U.S.-based international policy analysts, and our 12 foreign posts, and put them together into a directorate with our marching orders to help the agency to globalize, recognizing that we really have a lot to do to rise to the challenges of globalization. So I think that's good news in the sense that it really shows FDA's emphasis and priority on this and the fact that we have combined resources in a meaningful way to really go that way. We also have published our strategy, which is the Pathway to Global Product Safety and Quality, and you've heard a lot of the themes in this room that we have in the pathway. But the pathway really did try to set out the beginnings of a business case for why we need to work globally to confront the challenges of globalization. It has 4 pillars: forming global coalitions of regulators, global data systems, using advanced risk analytics, and leveraging the efforts of public and private third parties. So what does that mean? It means we can't do it alone. We need to be able to rely on others, work with others, and create efficiencies. And I think I've heard various statements in the room as to why it's challenging to harmonize, why it's challenging to converge, why it's challenging to align, why it's hard to work together. I did hear the word intransigence used once. I don't think that's it. I think it's a combination of inertia and the need for courage and the need for creativity. And I think also one of the themes that I'd like to strike with regulators, which I think is an important one, is the following. So regulators, I believe, tend to be somewhat controlling types. I think that's how we end up, in part, enjoying our jobs. And I think, so a little too much insight for you, but a little bit of the challenge, but it's late in the afternoon. So the challenge is, when it comes to working with others globally, that it means giving up some control. You have to learn to do things other people's ways. You have to learn to rely on them. You have to learn to trust them. And I think the important thing to think about when we go down that path is to recognize that we can't control everything. The world is too big, too global, too quickly moving for anybody, any regulator, or for that matter, any company to think they can get their hands around it all. You cannot. We cannot do it alone. We have to do it with others. The only way to gain control of the scope of those challenges is to let go of a little control, to work with others. And by letting go of control, you gain more control. And I've said that to various people, and sometimes the light bulbs really go off. And they say, you know what? Come to think of it, you're right. If I insist on doing it myself, my own way, I can only do a relatively small amount. If I open my mind and learn to work with others, learn to trust them, learn to rely on them, learn to share ways of doing things, then we can do much, much more together. So I think that's really important. That's really where I think we're coming from and trying to go as an agency. So what's the next step? Well, there's been a lot of really good conversation about a business case, and I think there is something that remains to be written in this area. I don't think we want to spend years coming up with the perfect words describing where to go, and I think a lot of it will come out of the write-up of this meeting, but I think that there needs to be a statement of why global convergence is important, and I think that needs to talk about gains in efficiency and coverage. People can't do it all alone. I think it needs to be written for various perspectives. So regulators, patients, donors, NGOs, legislatures, I think there are a lot of people who need to understand why this is important. Patients, from every single person's perspective. Consumer groups, I mean, I could go on and on. And I think that the business case can be an advocacy tool. It can have case studies, it can talk about the importance of regulatory work, and it can talk about the gaps. But it really needs to do is send the message to these various audiences as to why this is important to everybody. And also, I think it needs to look separately at review versus clinical trials versus inspections. It needs to think separately about the needs of the developed world versus the developing world. Not that they don't come together, but we have to recognize those are somewhat analytically different problems. Maybe we tackle them together, but we need to think about what are the different areas of need. And then I think we have to have a plan. I think that's the main thing, is we have to, out of that, say, okay, here's a proposal. Here's a group, here's who would get together, here's what they would do based on what we see as the gaps and what's out there that's being done currently, and here's where we would go. Recognizing this is an evolution. So one of the things I think we need to know in this meeting is I think there are a lot of people here who know so much about this that what we see are all of the things that are missing. And I think there are a lot of things missing. On the other hand, I think we have to recognize we've made a lot of progress. We have made a lot of progress. We have ICH, we have PANDRA, we have PICS, we even have convergence on the device side. We have a lot going on. We have PRAISE, we have Platform for SSFFC, I could go on and on, there's a lot. So really the question we ask is how do we take it to the next level? What is the next level of evolution of our global efforts? And I think getting people together to write a plan is key. And I would say finally that I think the most important thing is this has to be someone's day job. It has to be the day job of multiple people. So Lou Valdez and I were kicking this around at lunch and saying, we can make it someone's day job. We absolutely can. To pick up from where we are in this meeting and to work with others to move forward and come up with a plan. It may not be a plan that solves every gap, but what is the next step? Where can we go from here? What is the missing global coalition or global coalitions, and how do we really get that moving? So I will end with a challenge to others in this room to find a way to make this someone's day job and to work with us to come up with defined next steps. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Hans-Georg Eichler from the European Medicines Agency. Thank you for being